My name is Rebecca Martinez and I'm 28 years old. And until last month, I thought being family meant always looking out for each other. That's when my sister Olivia said I stole her $8,000 necklace. And my parents just believed her. I can still hear what my dad said. If you're going to lie to us, leave my house. They had no idea that I was paying their mortgage, utilities, and even Olivia's whole college fees. Let me know where you're watching from and sign up to follow my journey before I give you the next part. As the oldest daughter in the Martinez family, I had to live up to certain standards. Miguel and Ana Martinez, my parents, always told me that family loyalty was the most important thing in the world. Every Sunday at dinner, my dad would say, "Family is forever. Blood is what's left when everything else is gone." From the time I was a kid until I was a young adult, those words guided every choice I made. Our family of four lived in a simple Connecticut neighborhood home that my parents bought when they had more money. Dad ran a building company that used to be very successful and worked with 15 people at its peak. Mom had a steady but low-paying job as an office assistant at the nearby high school. Even though we weren't rich, I never had to worry about the basics when I was a kid. During the Great Recession of 2008, everything changed. Several big clients went bankrupt and owed Dad hundreds of thousands of dollars. This was terrible for his business. In less than 18 months, he had to fire all of his workers and finally go bankrupt himself. He felt terrible about failing and it made him feel bad. He was able to find work as a manager for another company, but it cut his pay by more than half. Not only did Mom get rheumatoid arthritis that same year, but her finances also got worse. Even though they had insurance, the medical bills started to pile up, and their funds quickly disappeared. 2 times they took out new loans to keep the house. They tried very hard to hide the fact that they were barely making ends meet from my sister and me, until I finished from college in 2018. Olivia is 7 years younger than I am. I saw how our family's finances were getting worse and knew how bad things were, but she didn't really know about these things. At least one of their girls would have a normal childhood. And my parents were determined to make that happen. During high school and college, I bought used textbooks and worked part-time jobs, but Olivia kept getting new clothes, the newest phones, and even a car for her 16th birthday. I never got mad at my sister for this. The fact that our parents kept her from seeing how money worked wasn't her fault, but it did change the way we thought about money and responsibility. Olivia started to think that her needs and wants would always be met without her having to do much. This is different from how I became thrifty and self-reliant. I was lucky to get a job at a growing tech company after getting my degree in computer science. My starting salary was fair, and I quickly showed my worth by getting promoted 3 times in a row. By the time I was 25, I was a senior developer making 6 figures a year and had stock options that made my net worth go up a lot. I bought a small modern apartment only 20 minutes from my parents' house and finally got my finances in order. I found out how bad my parents' finances had gotten when I went home for a short visit 3 years ago. There was a call for Dad in the garage while Mom and Olivia were shopping. I followed him quietly because I was interested in his quiet voice, and heard him pleading with the mortgage company for more time to make up their late payment. I found him sitting in his old pickup truck with his head in his hands and quietly crying after the call. Everything changed at that time. When I talked to him about it, his pride made him defensive at first, but in the end the truth came out. They weren't paying their debt for 3 months. Mom's medical bills put them in a lot of debt, and for months they had been using credit cards to pay for everyday things. Olivia's acceptance to a pricey private college with a $45,000 a year tuition fee was the last blow. They didn't want to let her down or say they couldn't pay for it, so they told her they would. That night, I made a choice that would change the way our family works for good. At the time, none of us knew it, but I offered to help them pay their bills until they could get back on their feet. Dad agreed, but not easily. One thing, though, Olivia must never know. He insisted that telling her we were having trouble would break her heart. Also, your mom would feel bad if the neighbors found out that we needed your help. What began as helping with some bills quickly grew. Within 6 months I was paying their whole mortgage, all of their bills, their property taxes, and most of their mom's hospital bills. I paid Olivia's full college fees when she started going to school. I was giving my family more than $70,000 a year, which is almost 2/3 of my take-home pay. Even though I lived 20 minutes away in my own apartment, I went to see them at least twice a week, bringing them food I said were on sale or leftovers from work events. On the weekends, I helped my dad fix up the house and took my mom to her doctor's appointments. When Olivia was having trouble in her introductory computer science class, I even helped her with her programming tasks. I saw my parents give Olivia the newest MacBook Pro for Christmas last year, but they said it was from them. In fact, I bought it from them, as I have done with most of their big gifts over the past few years. Olivia gave our parents a big hug and told them how much she loved them. I got a sweater and a gift card. I told myself I didn't care. It was enough for me to see my family happy. Mom and Dad wanted to give Olivia something special for her 21st birthday 2 months ago. She had been giving hints about a white gold and diamond necklace she saw in a downtown store that cost $8,000. She told me over dinner that it's an investment piece. Something I'll always keep and maybe even give to someone else someday. Mom looked upset when she saw the price, but Dad said they'd figure something out. Of course, that something was me. Dad called and asked if I could lend them the money. I knew it wasn't a loan right away. They never paid back the money I gave them, and I didn't expect them to. I sent the money that same day, and a week later at Olivia's birthday dinner, I saw her open the blue velvet box and scream with joy as her dad put the necklace around her neck. "You're the best parents ever," she said as she looked at herself in the mirror. I know no one else whose parents would give them something this cool. I smiled and took pictures of the moment, ignoring the pain in my chest that I knew was there. A part of me hoped that one day they would see what I had done and respect all the sacrifices I had made. That hope that my family would be recognized in the end kept me going even as my savings account got smaller. Olivia's social media was full of pictures from spring break trips and shopping sprees that I helped pay for. I never thought that necklace would be the thing that destroyed the family I had worked so hard to keep together. Going to my parents' house for Sunday dinner was a holy ritual. We all made it a point to be there at 6 o'clock sharp, even when our weeks got busy. The afternoon would be spent by Mom cooking something big. For a few hours, Dad would open a bottle of wine, and we could act like we were still the happy, well-off family we used to be. It was just another Sunday when that one began. I got there early to help my mom make her famous chicken enchiladas with salsa verde that she made herself. Dad and Olivia were watching a basketball game in the living room. Depending on the score, they would cheer or groan. Things were going as planned until Olivia dropped her fork in the middle of dinner. She asked, "Has anyone seen my necklace?" Her hand went to her throat naturally. "The diamond one from my birthday. I was going to wear it tonight, but couldn't find it in my jewelry box." "Did you check your dresser?" my mom asked. Olivia shook her head and said, "You leave things there when you're in a hurry." I asked, "When was the last time you wore it?" "It's too valuable to leave out. I always keep it in the blue velvet box." I knew how much that necklace meant to her, even if someone else had bought it. "Last weekend at Melissa's party," she replied. "I definitely put it back in its box when I got home." Dad raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure?" he asked. "You were pretty drunk when you got home from that party." "I wasn't that drunk," Olivia said. "I remember putting it away because I was afraid I would lose it." We put off dinner for a while we looked for Olivia's necklace. I went with her to her bedroom and helped her check every drawer and surface. We also looked under the bed in clothing pockets and in the bathroom, where she might have taken it off while getting ready. Olivia got more angry as we looked for it and didn't find it. "I don't understand," she muttered, getting more and more angry. "It should be here." As the search spread to other rooms in the house, I noticed a subtle change in the mood. Olivia's eyes followed me as I went into rooms. When I offered to check the laundry room, she quickly said she'd already done that, even though I knew she hadn't. Before the storm, small amounts of tension started to build. We finally found the dinner table an hour after searching for it in vain. The enchiladas were cold, but we heated up plates in the microwave and tried to salvage the meal. The conversation was stifled, and Olivia was noticeably quiet. "Rebecca, you were in my room earlier today, right?" she suddenly asked, her voice carrying an edge I hadn't heard before. I paused mid-bite, confused. "What?" "No, I went straight to the kitchen when I got there. When I was going upstairs, I thought I saw you come out. I told her I went up to the bathroom once, but I didn't go into your room because I didn't like the way she was talking to me." Mom moved around in her seat. Dad looked back and forth between us, but his face was blank. Olivia went on, "That's strange. When I got back upstairs, my door was open and I always close it. I said that Mom might have gone in to put the clothes away. Mom turned her head. I didn't do clothes today, no. There was a bad smell in the air about what it meant. I wasn't directly accused of anything, but it was clear what they thought. Olivia, I said slowly, if what I think you mean is what you say, you're wrong. I didn't have any reason to go into your room, and I didn't take your necklace. She gave a shrug, but her eyes stayed wary. I'm just trying to understand what went on. It is a necklace worth $8,000. Doesn't just go away. I tried to keep my voice level while getting more and more angry by saying, well, it didn't disappear into my pocket. Dad blew his nose. He told Rebecca, no one is accusing you of anything, but the way he said it made it sound like they were. But you have to admit that the necklace going missing on the day you visit is a bit of a mistake. I told him, I visit twice a week every week. I was shocked that he would even think of the idea. Are you really telling me I should steal from my sister? Mom said, of course not. But she didn't look me in the eyes. We're all just scared. The rest of dinner was spent in awkward silence. Olivia turned down my offer to help her look again, saying that she thought it might be found on its own. It was clear what it meant. After I left, the necklace might have suddenly shown up again. It made me feel sick as I drove home that night. I felt like I didn't belong in my own family for the first time. People who I had given up a lot for had just lightly thought I could steal. I didn't want to accept how much it hurt. Around midnight, Olivia sent me a text message. I've looked everywhere, just so you know. It's not at all in the house. I looked at the message for a while, not sure what to say. Another text message came through before I could decide. That joke is no longer funny if you took it that way. We won't bother you again if you give it back. After typing and deleting several replies, I finally sent, I didn't take your necklace, Olivia. That's something I would never do to you. I hope you quickly find it. Her answer came back almost right away. Okay, fine. Know that your parents are very upset. That night I couldn't sleep because more texts kept coming in, each one more accusatory than the last. By the next morning it looked like my sister was sure I was a thief. From her texts I could tell that my parents thought the same thing. What started out as a simple lost item turned into a test of my character, and it looked like I was failing. The next morning both of my parents called me several times, but I missed them. Instead of giving them back right away, I chose to drive over and talk to them in person. If we didn't understand each other, we could clear it up in person. Even though the previous night made me nervous, I still thought that our family could talk to each other in a reasonable way. When I got to my parents' house around 10 o'clock, I could tell that things were tense. Mom was washing dishes with an odd amount of energy and barely noticed when I said hello. His face was grim, and the newspaper next to his coffee was still not opened. Dad was sitting at the kitchen table. I tried to sound casual when I asked, where is Olivia? Go upstairs, Dad said quickly. She's been turning her room upside down all morning looking for that necklace. I took a deep breath. Look, I know everyone is upset, but I need to make it clear that I had nothing to do with it going missing. Before Dad could answer, Olivia walked in the doorway. She looked angry and almost triumphant at the same time. Then how do you explain this? She demanded, holding up her empty blue velvet jewelry box. I found it in your old bedroom, shoved under the bookshelf.
Ist daher genuinely confused.
That's impossible. Well, Dad said as he stood up, the box didn't just walk there. His voice had taken on an angry tone that I rarely heard in his anger toward me. Rebecca, if you're having money problems, you should have come to us instead of doing this. I was in financial trouble when I was the one keeping the whole family alive. Dad, I told him, this is ridiculous. I don't need money and I certainly wouldn't steal from my own sister. Then how did the box get in your room? He asked. It's not my room anymore. I haven't lived here in years. Even Olivia could have put it there, I said, making my point clear. Olivia let out a huge gasp. Are you saying I planted it? Why would I do that? She asked. Mom finally turned away from the sink and said, please don't fight. I'm sure there's an explanation. Dad agreed, his voice rising. There is evidence that someone stole the necklace and it points to Rebecca. This made me angry and hurt. What evidence? An empty box that could have been put there by anyone? That's not evidence. That's a setup. Why would someone want to set you up? My dad asked. I don't know. Why would I want to steal a necklace when I make more than enough money to buy my own if I wanted one? I asked Olivia. During this heated argument, I noticed something strange about Olivia. She looked upset when my parents were looking at her, but she had a different look on her face when they weren't. She quickly covered up a small smile of happiness when she realized I was watching. Let's check the security camera, I suggested. Last year, my parents set up a basic security system with a camera that covered the front door and driveway. It would show if anyone left the house with something. Dad stiffly agreed, and he gathered us around his laptop to watch the footage from the previous day. We saw me arrive at 4 o'clock, empty-handed except for a bag of groceries. While I was there, different angles showed nothing suspicious, and when I left around 9 o'clock, I only had my purse and phone with me. The video wasn't very good, but it was clear that I hadn't taken a jewelry box that stood out. Olivia said she could have put it in her purse, but I told her that my purse isn't big enough to fit that box without looking funny. She then pressed me. Maybe you took just the necklace. It would fit in a pocket. Dad rubbed his temples. Rebecca, you could have sold it if you needed money. $8,000 would have solved a lot of problems. The conversation was getting more and more silly. While they kept guessing about my possible financial reasons, my phone rang with a payment reminder. It was for their mortgage, which was due in 3 days. As I often do, I approved the payment right then and there. $3,000 was taken out of my account to cover their rent for another month. No one noticed that I was helping my family while being accused of theft. I don't need to sell a stolen necklace, I said, putting my phone away.
I'm financially stable.
Mom said in a soft voice. Even successful people get into trouble sometimes. I stared at her, hurt that she seemed to think I could do this too. Mom, I haven't taken anything. I wouldn't. Then why was the box in your room? Dad asked again, as if saying it again would change the truth. I told you I didn't know, but there are many possibilities that don't involve me stealing. As the accusations kept coming, I saw Olivia typing on her phone and caught a glimpse of a smirk. I had a terrible thought. What if she had set up this whole thing on purpose? Why would she want to cause trouble between me and our parents? Look, I finally said, losing my temper. I know the necklace is valuable and you're upset that it's gone, but I've spent my whole life being honest and trustworthy. I've always been here for this family. Does it really make sense for me to steal from you now? Dad's face got serious. People change, and sometimes we don't know someone as well as we think we do. He had no idea how deeply those words hurt. After all the things I had given up and the help I had given without being thanked or recognized, my character was being called into question based on nothing but my sister's accusations and circumstantial evidence. I think you should leave until we figure this out, my dad told me. Finally, your mother is upset, and you are making things worse. I looked to Mom for support, but she turned her head away and silently agreed with Dad's choice. Olivia stood in the background, and for a split second, I saw that expression again. Not sadness or confusion, but happiness. While I was getting ready to leave, I had a strong feeling of unfairness wash over me. This wasn't just about a missing necklace. It was about trust, respect, and the painful realization that my family would choose to believe the worst of me based on weak evidence. As I walked to my car, I saw Olivia watching from her bedroom window. We looked at each other for a moment, and I knew for sure that this wasn't a misunderstanding. There was something more planned at play, though I still didn't understand why my sister would want to ruin my relationship with our parents. My family didn't talk to me much for 3 days. Mom sent a few vague texts asking how I was doing, making sure not to mention the necklace. Dad stayed quiet. Olivia, on the other hand, had been telling her side of the story to other family members. This became painfully clear to me when my Aunt Patricia, my dad's sister, called and asked if I could come to the house that night for a family discussion. Her tone was soft but firm, making it clear that I had to go if I wanted to stay part of the family. Your parents are very upset, she said. I'm upset too, I replied. No one believes me when I say I didn't do something. That's why we need to talk, she insisted. Please be there at 7 o'clock, she said. Rebecca, I agreed. Not because I wanted a fair hearing, but because I couldn't stand the thought of being separated from my family. I still loved them and really wanted to clear my name. When I got home that night, it looked more like an intervention than a family discussion. Dad and Mom were sitting on the couch in the living room, while Aunt Patricia and Uncle Robert were in the armchairs. Olivia was sitting on the piano bench with her eyes red from crying. Michael, my cousin, stood by the fireplace with his arms crossed. "Rebecca," Dad started as soon as I sat down, "we've asked you here because this has gone on for too long. The necklace is still missing and all evidence points to you taking it." "What evidence?" I asked. "An empty box that anyone could have planted?" Olivia spoke up, her voice shaking in a sassy way. The implication was clear. The pawn shop downtown doesn't ask for ID for items under $10,000. They pay cash on the spot. I felt angry. "So now I've not only stolen your necklace but also pawned it. This is ridiculous, right?" Dad asked. "You've been acting strange lately, busy, checking your phone all the time, and making excuses to leave early." It was so bitterly ironic. They were checking the phone to pay their bills, and they were leaving early to get to my second job, which I started 6 months ago to help pay for Olivia's study abroad program for the next semester. "That doesn't prove anything," I said. Aunt Patricia leaned forward and said, "Rebecca, honey, if you're in trouble, we want to help. But first you have to be honest." "I'm telling the truth. I didn't take the necklace." Uncle Robert shook his head saddenly. "Denying it makes things harder for everyone." Other family members took turns talking about why confession would be best for everyone. No one even considered the idea that I might not be guilty, not even for a second. It was like they already knew I was guilty and were just waiting for me to admit it. Finally, my dad stood up and pointed at me with a shaking finger. "Rebecca, I'm going to say this once. Either tell the truth about what you did with the necklace and return it, or leave the house and don't come back until you're ready to tell the truth." I was stunned. In all my 28 years, I had never heard him talk to me with such coldness. "Dad," I said in a voice barely above a whisper, "I'm your daughter. You've known me my whole life. Do you really think I would do this?" "The Rebecca I raised wouldn't," he replied. I turned to my mother, who had been mostly quiet, and said, "But people change." She looked down at her hands, which were twisted together in her lap, and asked, "Mom, do you believe I did this?" It was enough for her to keep quiet. I hurt so badly from being lied to that I could hardly breathe. I had given this family money for years, given up my own financial security, and put my life on hold in many ways, and this is what I got in return. Not just not believing, but outright judging. Michael suddenly said, "I think we should check Rebecca's car. She might still have it there if she hasn't already pawned it." Before I could say anything, Dad had already agreed. "Lisa, that's a good idea. Please hand over your keys." I told them this was silly, but I gave them my keys anyway because I didn't want to look like I wasn't cooperating and make their assumptions stronger. Everyone went outside and gathered around my parked car in the driveway. Dad opened it and started looking for things while everyone else watched. First he looked under the seats, then in the glove box, and finally in the trunk. I heard several gasps when he opened it. The unique blue velvet jewelry box was there, partly hidden by a reusable grocery bag. I just stared in shock. "I didn't put that there, that's not." Dad took the box out and opened it. Of course, empty. He looked at me with a face that was a mix of confirmation and sadness. "Are you still going to say no? Someone put that there?" I insisted, and my voice got angrier as I did so. "I haven't opened my trunk in days," Michael said. "Convenient excuse." Dad shut the trunk with a slam that sounded like my family's final verdict. "I believe we've seen enough. Girl, I want you to leave right now. You shouldn't get in touch with us until you're ready to own up to your mistake and make things right." "Dad, please." I begged, my tears running freely. "I'm being set up by someone. It's not fair. It's not fair to steal from your own sister and lie to us," he said in a cold voice. "You were better than this when I raised you." I looked around at the people in my family. Some looked angry, others sad or resigned, and still others angry. Olivia was the only one whose face looked off. There was something else going on behind the fake tears. Happiness and comfort. I was having trouble putting it. "Mom." I gave it one more chance. "Say something." Though her eyes were wet, she finally looked up. "Becky, just leave. Please wait." Angry and defeated, I got my purse and keys together. Right before I left, Olivia took out her phone to check a message. That's when I saw it. For a split second before she tipped her phone away, the clear sparkle of her diamond necklace could be seen just below the collar of her sweater in the reflection of her dark phone screen. The understanding hit me like a ton of bricks. The necklace was with her the whole time. The charges, the family meeting, and the whole drama were all planned ahead of time. My sister was the one who got me kicked out of the family. I opened my mouth to tell her off, but I knew right then that it wouldn't help. They already thought I was guilty. Not having proof, my word against hers wouldn't change anything. As I walked to my car, I could feel their eyes on my back. As I drove away from the house I had helped financially for years, tears made it so hard for me to see that I had to stop a block away. I finally let myself cry all the way down in my car by myself. I sobbed until my throat hurt and my eyes hurt. It was a complete deception. Not only was I falsely accused, but I also knew that my sister had planned my downfall on purpose. And what was even worse was that my parents, who I had given up so much for, believed the worst about me right away. When I got back to my apartment, I sat in the dark for hours, going over every moment of the last few days over and over again and trying to figure out how my relationship with my family could have soured so badly. Around midnight, Olivia sent me a text message. "I hope you're okay now. You made everyone mad." I felt something solidify inside me when I read her message after what she had done. It was about more than just a necklace. It was about years of imbalance, sacrifices that weren't recognized, and letting bad family relationships happen. It was clear that I had to be the one to make things different. When I woke up the next morning, I felt strangely calm. I felt more clear than I had in years after the intense storm of the previous night passed. I got some coffee, turned on my PC, and started a planned review of my finances. I made a detailed chart for the first time that showed every dollar I had given to my family over the last 3 years. Payments on a mortgage of $108,000. About $12,600 for utilities. $22,500 in property taxes. Mom's healthcare costs $800. Olivia's school costs and fees add up to $151,200. Help with things like groceries, car fixes, and gifts totaling about $35,000. The G total of $377,100 over 3 years made me feel sick. Greater than $300,000, which is a large enough down payment for a house. Enough to put all the money I need in my retirement savings. Enough to have changed the way my financial future will go. The spreadsheet also showed me some hard facts about my current situation. My savings were down to less than 2 months' worth of living costs. I was only making the minimum payments on my credit card so that I could save money for my family. My 401k payments had been cut so that I could only get the company match. This was a lot less than what financial advisors said someone my age should do. I was giving up my own financial health and future safety for a family that had just thrown me out of their lives for stealing something. Around noon, I called Janet Perez, a financial advisor I had quickly talked to when I first started making a lot of money. That afternoon, she agreed to meet with me, so I brought my worksheet and other paperwork to her office. After looking over the numbers, she said to Rebecca, her face showing a mix of worry and shock, "This amount of cash help can't last forever. You did the right thing by wanting to help your family, but you've now put your own financial safety at great risk." I agreed that I know that now, but I need to know what my choices are going forward. Am I required by law to keep making any of these payments? She gave a firm shake of her head. Without a doubt not. If you haven't signed any contracts directly promising to make these payments, which I doubt you have, you are not legally required to keep giving money. These were gifts, not promises that had to be kept. There's no way they could make me keep making payments on my fees. The university has a deal with the student or person who signed the tuition agreement, not with you as a payer from outside the university. Anyone who has been sending money to the school without signing anything can stop at any time. It felt like a weight was taken off my shoulders. What about the home loan? My name isn't on it, but I've paid it off for years. The same rule applies. The loan deal is between your parents and the bank. Your choice to pay doesn't make them legally obligated to keep doing so. Just to be sure, I also set up a meeting with a lawyer for later that afternoon. William Chun, the lawyer, confirmed everything Janet told me. I wasn't required by law to keep giving money to my family. He pointed out in a gentle way that any moral duty had to be weighed against how they treated me and my needs. He explained that getting money from family is a choice, not a requirement, especially after a big trust break. After getting this information, I went back home and started collecting proof that I could pay for Olivia's schooling. I started by getting bank statements that showed transfers to my parents' accounts, records of direct payments to Olivia's school, and utility bills in my parents' names that had payment receipts from my accounts. I put everything in a notebook in order of when it was done, making an official record of what I did. My phone rang while I was working. Even though I didn't know the number, I answered it anyway, half expecting a debt collector to call me about my parents. Instead, I heard a voice I knew. "Hi Rebecca, this is Melissa, Olivia's roommate from first year." Melissa and I had always been friends, but I hadn't talked to her in months. "How are you?" This comes as a surprise. "I see what you mean. Listen, I heard something yesterday that I believe you should be aware of. Olivia and some friends came into the coffee shop near college while I was there. They didn't see me because I was in the corner seat." My heart started to beat faster. "What did you hear?" She was telling Rebecca how happy she was that she was free of you. Those were her exact words. I got Rebecca off my back for good. She laughed about it and said, "Now your parents won't compare them to you all the time." The fact that my fears were right should have made me angry, but it made me more determined. "Did she talk about a necklace?" "Yes, she did. She said something about hiding it to make it look like you took it." I didn't hear everything, but it was clear that it was planned. That made me feel bad because I always thought you were nice. "Lisa, thanks for telling me." "Thank you very much." I sat in silence for a few minutes after we hung up the phone to think about this last piece of proof. It was clear that my sister's betrayal was planned and meant to cut me out of the family picture. Despite years of proof to the contrary, my parents were quick to believe the worst of me. With a newfound drive, I started to stop all of my family's automatic payments one by one. The next week's mortgage payment was canceled. Auto payments for utilities were stopped. Olivia's payment for her next semester's fees was canceled. I wrote down the steps I took for each withdrawal and saved the confirmation numbers. It wasn't just about cutting ties with money. It was about taking back control of my future and finances. After that, I wrote a formal message to my family. It was realistic and not emotional. It lay out exactly how much money I had given them over the years, and told them that all of that help was ending right away. I sent them copies of important papers that proved my contributions. This was enough to show how much I helped without giving them too much information. I paused for a moment as I got ready to mail the letter. Was my tone too harsh? Would this really make things hard, especially for my mom who needs medical care? I came up with other options. I could keep paying for mom's medical bills, or I could give them more time to figure out their money problems. Then I remembered the looks on their faces when they said I stole something. My mom was silently involved, my dad just shrugged it off, and Olivia smiled happily as she planned my family's departure while wearing the necklace she had accused me of taking. Not at all. I chose to take a complete break, because I felt it was good for both my mental and financial health. They made up their minds and chose to believe Olivia's lies over all the times I had proven myself to be honest. Now they would have to deal with what their decisions meant. I marked the envelope with the letter and other papers that went with it, sealed it, and put it next to my door to mail. I blocked Olivia's number on my phone the next morning, but I left my parents' lines open. I would listen to them if they wanted to say sorry, but I wouldn't put myself through more charges or pressure. I slept better that night than in years. The weight of unacknowledged suffering was finally taken off my shoulders. What my family did wrong was very important to me, but I wasn't going to fail myself anymore. The first call came 3 days after I mailed my letter. My dad, his voice a mix of fear and anger. "Rebecca, what the hell is this? Some kind of joke?" "Dad, it's not a joke." I gave a cool answer. "That letter is full of truth. This family has been taking care of me financially for years, and this is how you've treated me in return. This is our way of getting back at you for the necklace." I almost laughed at how silly it was. "That's not vengeance. This is what happens. You chose to think I was a thief even though you know a lot about me. You kicked me out of the family home. After that, why would I keep paying your bills?" He yelled. "We needed that money." "Yes, you did." She never thanked me or acknowledged it, and she didn't even tell Olivia that the sister she made look like a thief was paying for her college. After a long pause, he spoke again. "What do you mean by set up?" "Mom and Olivia had the necklace the whole time, Dad. The night you all approached me, I saw it on her phone screen. She hid it on purpose and put the empty box there to make me look bad. And not a single one of you thought about that possibility. One more stop. This time it's longer. He spoke again, but this time his voice wasn't as loud. You shouldn't cut us off without telling us. The loan is due next week. I am aware of the exact date it is due. It's been 3 years since I paid it. The medicine for your mom is covered by her insurance for the next 30 days. You'll have to do something else after that. With my money, you could sell some of those pricey things you've been giving Olivia. Rebecca, use common sense. I think I've been pretty good the last 3 years. I'm now being honest with myself. I hung up the phone and took a deep breath. It had been hard, but not nearly as painful as I thought it would be. It looked like setting limits got easier over time. Late that same day, my mom called me again. She didn't start out angry like her dad did. She started out crying. Hey Rebecca, please. We just got a call from the mortgage company about a late payment. Olivia's school also called about next semester's fees. Dear Mom, I'm sorry you're having a hard time, but those bills are your problem, not mine. Why are you treating us this way? We're your family. It might have worked a week ago to make them feel bad. It made it clear that their love had always been limited. Mom, family works both ways. It's not family when someone is charged of theft and kicked out without a fair trial. That is a court. The necklace made us sad. When people are mad, they say things they don't mean. Dad told me not to come back until I admitted to something I didn't do. Did he not mean it? Did you not mean it when you kept quiet while everyone blamed me? Mom, what you do has effects. We have this happen because of yours. Olivia sent me a lot of texts after she hung up the phone. She didn't try to get us to feel something like our parents did. Her messages were full of direct charges against me. She called me selfish, mean, and worse. I read them and didn't say anything in response. I noticed how quickly her suffering mask had come off now that her easy life was in danger. 2 days later, I got a call from a number I didn't know. It was Olivia's college's financial aid office calling to ask about the removal of her tuition payment. I kindly told them that I would no longer be paying for my sister's schooling and suggested that they ask Olivia or our parents for help with any future problems. The next week, my family became more and more desperate. Dad left voicemails that went back and forth between being angry and trying to make things better. Mom texted with tears in her eyes about getting calls and letters that she owed money. Olivia's messages got crazier as she realized how bad things really were for her. I stuck to my boundaries the whole time, only answering direct questions and refused to be emotionally manipulated. It was hard. I had been taught for years to put their needs before my own, and to be the family fixer. The person who would always be there for them in a disaster. In order to break that routine, I had to constantly fight the urge to save them. 3 weeks after I sent my letter, my mom texted me to ask if we could get coffee. I agreed, picking a neutral place and a short amount of time to keep things from getting too dramatic. I was shocked to find her by herself when I got to the cafe. I thought maybe my whole family would surprise me with another rescue. There were new lines around her eyes and mouth, which made her look tired. She said, "Thank you for coming," as I sat down. I responded, "Of course," keeping my tone calm. She started by nervously shredding a napkin. "There's something you should know." Olivia told the truth about the necklace. Not much was said, just a nod. She had it the whole time. She told him she was envious of you because your dad always talks about how responsible and successful you are. If she could make you look bad, she thought maybe they wouldn't always compare her to you. I just said, "I know." That night at the house, I saw the chain in her phone screen. Mom's eyes got really big. "You knew? Why didn't you say something? Did anyone really believe me? You all already thought I was guilty." She couldn't look up at me and look down. "You should have had our trust. You had better earn my trust." "Becky, I'm really sorry." I thought her apology was sincere, but I noticed that it came after Olivia told her, not because she realized she had been wrong about me. It also came after weeks of money problems, which made people doubt its truthfulness. "Thank you for telling me," I said slowly. "What's going on at home?" She sighed. "Not easy. To pay the debt, your dad had to ask for a loan at work. We couldn't pay for Olivia to take 2 classes, so she had to drop them. It doesn't pay very well, but she got a job at the nearby bookstore." I acknowledged the information with a nod, but I didn't offer to help. When Rebecca was younger, she would have stepped in right away, offered to pay the most important bills, and returned to her usual role as the family's rescuer. But I was no longer that person. "What about the string?" I asked. "It was sold." Mom came back in about a week after you left. She had to get the money for a trip she had already planned for spring break. She didn't think you would stop paying for everything. We didn't do it. It was almost too funny to be true. Olivia told everyone that I stole and sold the necklace. Then did the same thing herself when she realized she needed to save money. I hope you get why I had to step back. That's why I said it wasn't just about the charge. It was about years of not appreciating all the things I did for the family and taking my help for granted. Mom gave a slow nod. All of the payment records for the mortgage, the utilities, and Olivia's school fees were found by your dad. We had no idea it was that much. You knew I was there to help. You never said how much it was. We should have done it. Becky, I'm really sorry. That's true for everything, not just the chain. Because they took advantage of your kindness for a long time. We were more honest than we had been in years as we talked for another hour. She said that Dad's pride had kept him from realizing how much they relied on their parents' money. Telling them how hurt I was that they thought the worst of me hurt me. Something had changed between us by the time we left. It's not quite forgiveness, but it's a step toward understanding. Dad called that night. His apology wasn't as well written as Mom's, but it seemed sincere in how awkward it was. He had a hard time putting his feelings of sorrow into words, but in the end he chose a rude tone. I'm sorry I was wrong about you.
I'm truly sorry.
Olivia was the last person to get in touch. She wrote a letter instead of calling. Her admission showed that she had planned the whole thing out of years of jealousy and anger. You've always been the best. I wish they could see that you were not so perfect after all, she wrote. I never thought it would go so far. I never thought you'd stop paying for everything. Like our parents, her apology seemed partly driven by fear of losing money rather than real regret. In any case, it was a start. At least she knew she had hurt people. The following weeks were hard for our family as we started to rethink what it meant. For the first time in years, my parents took charge of all their money. Olivia took less schoolwork and worked part-time to help pay for her schooling. I also kept my financial freedom by rebuilding my funds and planning for my own future. It was hard. On all sides there were slips into old habits, efforts to control things, and angry moments. But over time a new relationship began to take shape. One based on respect instead of taking advantage, and on being honest instead of telling lies to feel good. And through it all I found something I didn't expect. I had strength I didn't know I had. The strength to believe in my own worth, even when the people I loved most tried to take it away. The guts to ask for the respect I earned. The wisdom to understand that true love doesn't need constant sacrifice without being noticed. A difficult lesson that may have been good for all of us. 6 months have passed since my family accused me of theft, and I now know what it really costs to be supported without conditions. Not only have I fixed my finances, but I've also learned what healthy relationships should look like, and how to feel good about myself. It was surprisingly freeing for me in the first few weeks after I stopped sending money to my family. I was finally able to put all of my saves into an emergency fund, because I didn't have to worry about running out of money all the time. I put more money into my 401k, up to the 15% of my income that is suggested. I even started looking into investment properties, which seemed impossible while I was taking care of 4 people on one income. But getting my money back was only one part of my trip. The hurt feelings caused by my family's betrayal were worse than I thought at first. I began seeing Dr. Lena Thompson, a therapist who specializes in family issues and setting limits, 2 months after our fight. During our first meeting, she told me that what your family did was a form of mental abuse. They took advantage of your kindness, used you without thinking, and then threw you away because of a false charge. It's okay to feel sad, angry, and confused about what happened. With Dr. Thompson's help, I started to figure out patterns that had been set up before the necklace episode. How, since I was a child, I was thought of as the responsible parent. I felt like I was valuable when I was needed instead of when I was appreciated for who I was because of how my parents raised my sister to be dependent while expecting me to be independent. Putting other people's wants before their own all the time can make people feel guilty when they try to set boundaries. Her words stuck with me when doubt crept in during hard times. Remember that boundaries aren't selfish. They're necessary for healthy relationships. Was my tone too harsh? Should I help with one bill this time? When those thoughts came up, I told myself that setting limits isn't being selfish. They are important for keeping relationships strong. At about the same time I started going to therapy, I met some new people. For years, I hadn't had much time for friends because I had to spend time with my family. Now that I had more time and money, I joined a hiking club, worked at a local coding boot camp for women, and got back in touch with old coworkers. I learned what real appreciation feels like through these relationships. When I helped a boot camp student fix bugs in a hard project, she thanked me so much more than years of unacknowledged family support. When I planned a hiking trip for the weekend, my hiking group's enthusiastic involvement made my work feel worthwhile in a way that my family never had. My work also did well without having to worry about money all the time. I took on difficult tasks that I might have avoided before because of lack of time, which led to a promotion and a big pay raise 4 months after the fight with my family. That extra money finally helped me save for the future instead of giving it to people who were ignoring me. When it came to my family, our friendship grew over time, but not without problems. After years of depending on my help, my parents had a hard time getting used to being financially independent. Dad did extra work over the weekend. Mom found a part-time job that she could do even though her health was bad. They moved from their big family house to a cheaper, smaller apartment. Olivia sent me a long letter that felt different from her first apology 3 months after our fight. The first note she wrote was mostly about reasons and explanations, but this one showed real self-reflection. "I have given much thought to why I did what I did," she wrote. "It wasn't just that you were envious of how your parents treated you. It was knowing deep down that I didn't deserve the way of life I was living, that I hadn't earned it the way you've earned everything else in your life. It was easier to put you down than to boost my own confidence. It's time for me to do the hard job. This term I got a second job. I am going to all of my classes. Today is the first time I've paid for something with money I worked for. Feels different, somehow better. I'm sorry for what I did, but I wanted you to know that I'm trying to change." I was moved more deeply by her writing than I thought. Not enough to get financial help again, but enough to think about getting back together in some way. First, we texted each other once in a while. Then, every few weeks we met for coffee. First, our chats were cautious. We didn't talk about money or the necklace incident. Over time, we started to feel a new kind of tension. It's not the close friendship I had hoped for, but it's more honest than what we had before.